From the Corner Office is brought to you by Synovus Bank, championing business growth through trusted, relationship-driven banking throughout the Gulf Coast region. A lot of leadership jobs have tough moments, but Dev Iglesias, someone who I've known for about 3 years, including interviewing her for a Business Observer Changemaker story, takes that up a notch. The Director of External Affairs for the Southwest Florida region of FPL, Dev is one of the key faces leading the energy giants' post-storm response in the region. And Dev, as many know her will attest, always handles the pressure-packed situations with grace and humility. The Business Observer writes often about strong leaders under pressure like Dev. To read those stories and more, subscribe. Go to businessobserverfl.com. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Dev Iglesias, Director of External Affairs at Florida Power and Light. Dev, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm excited to get to talk to you in this format. You and I have known each other for several years. I feel like you know everybody in the business community in Sarasota and Bradenton, but it's been fun getting to know you and seeing you grow in your career.
Thank you. Yes, it is part of the job, so I try to know everyone that I can know.
Yes. All right, awesome. Deb, we're going to talk about FPL, and I think you recently got a promotion there. We're going to talk about that and what your job entails and is every day. Before we get into that, let's get our audience to know you a little bit better. A couple of rapid fire questions. Dev, tell us, what was your first ever job and what did it teach you about leadership?
Are we talking paid or unpaid?
Well, I usually paid, but now that you gave me a choice, I want to hear both. Start with paid. What was your first paid job?
So my first paid job was actually as an undergraduate assistant at Marshall University. So I ended up going there for graduate school. I got a really great opportunity where they paid me to go. They paid for my schooling as well as my housing and gave me the stipend as long as I worked for their athletic association. So I actually was the sports information director for a couple of their sports teams, but most prominently their softball team. And so I guess the biggest lesson I learned there, gosh, there was so much to learn there. Um, but I really learned the art of sticking to decisions that you make, whether they were right or wrong, uh, and negotiation. Because as as being an SID, you end up in um, the press box with the opposing team. And a lot of what you're doing is scoring the game as you're writing the game recap story that ends up getting published and gets sent to media. And there are multiple times where there is a decision to be made on whether something was a hit or an error. And you have to negotiate with the opposing SID to make that decision. And more often than I'd like to admit, my head coach came storming out of the dugout yelling at the press box because she felt that we got a decision wrong. And I had to learn how to communicate the tough decisions that were made. And I also had to learn, again, the art of negotiation and just owning the decision, even if it was something it's intimidating when you're a young professional and you're coming across a very hyped up head coach that's been in the business for decades and you're arguing with him or her on a call. So you kind of have to learn to hold your ground on certain things and move forward that way. So a lot of lessons learned there.
Yeah, that's a really interesting lesson because it's sort of like the gray area, right? And like I've talked about this as I lead at the Observer Media Group. That's the challenge, right? The black and white stuff is easy because there's no wiggle room. It's what we do, it's our precedent, it's our rule, it's our foundation. But there's so many things in leadership I find that are gray areas, right? Where,
Mhm.
maybe that was a hit, but I'm pretty sure it was an error, right? So you have to
Yep.
deal with that at a young age too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
And then my unpaid job, I don't know that you'd call it a job, but I
yeah.
would call it a job. I was a competitive, so I love sports, but I actually started in competitive equestrian. So I competed around the region and around the state in hunter jumper. And I was given a horse. I was very fortunate to be given a horse at the age of 9. And so my first job was to be an athlete and to be a caretaker for a 1,200-pound animal. And so it just taught me, obviously, a lot of responsibility about caring for others before yourself. That a job is not 9 to 5, and sometimes it requires a lot of dedication. And really how important it is to earn the trust. You can imagine in day to day to earn the trust of people, but to earn the trust at a young age of a 1,200-pound animal and get it to trust you to lead it over jumps and around a course and to do the things that you want it to do, is not easy. And I fell a lot of times. I got hurt, a couple serious injuries a couple times, but I kept getting up and getting back on the horse and we kept trying. So a lot of persistence, responsibility, and the importance of trust in that first job that most people wouldn't consider a job, but I certainly did.
Oh, yeah. No, I never knew that about you. How long, like, into your teenage years or into your growing up did you participate in equestrian and horse riding?
Yeah, so I started riding at the age of 6, and I got really competitive around 9 years old and started competing at, state championships and regional championships of the like. I competed all the way until I was about 15 or 16 years old, and what's interesting is at that age, I started playing additional sports. And so, again, talking about the importance of learning responsibility, when you're horseback riding, it tends to be a 24/7 gig. It's kind of all your focus, right? You have to be at the barn every day. You have to be taking care of this animal. That's really difficult when you're also trying to play volleyball and basketball and some of the other sports. And so I had to come to a really tough decision of just whether or not I wanted to continue riding or start playing some of my other sports. And I had to make the difficult decision to sell my horse. I had gotten to a point where I outgrew my horse and I needed to decide I'm either going to buy a new horse and go full time into equestrian or kind of sell my horse and say goodbye to that chapter of my life. And I opted for the latter.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I never knew that. Okay, next question. As a leader, what's more important to you, your gut instinct or data?
I would have to say gut instinct. It's just something you know inside. And I think in today's day and age too with AI, you just never know what's real, what's not. Data tends to, in my experience, it brings up more questions. Not that it's bad. It brings up a lot of questions because you want to dig into the details of it. But sometimes there's just a gut instinct that you don't need data to tell you. It's just something that you trust and you follow. So for me, it's definitely gut instinct.
Yeah, I like it. A lot to consider there on the data side, as you mentioned with AI. Okay, and the last question is, and it's kind of old sport. It's not sports themed, but there's a hint of sports. What motivates you more, winning or not losing, or the ability, the desire to win, or the fear of losing?
Not losing. I am not someone that likes failure. I do, and I think that's a hard lesson that I've had to learn over the years. Because once there is failure, the lesson of having to move on to the next point or the next task or the next project, and fix those mistakes in that next iteration has been something that's been tough for me to learn because losing hits me, I think, harder than winning, if that makes sense. So I would say my motivation is definitely not losing.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Okay, so FPL, tell us about your career there, what your role is, and it looks like from the LinkedIn social media post I saw, you recently got promoted. We're here in early June. Congratulations! So tell us about your role at FPL.
Thank you. Yes. So I have been promoted to Director of External Affairs for Southwest Florida and the Heartland counties. So that's 11 counties that are under my area, and that's roughly about 20% of FPL's customer base. And so our role as a director of external affairs, and then my team that's under me as external affairs managers, our role is really to be the boots on the ground face of FPL. We want to make sure that our customers, when they think FPL, they're not thinking of a big static building. They're thinking of a person that works there. Because at the end of the day, our employees are in your neighborhoods, they're your neighbors, their kids are going to the school with your kids. And so my job is to be the liaison in the face of the company with our largest stakeholders, as well as our county municipal elected officials and staff as well. And so a big part of that is just helping to move projects forward. If there are issues that they're coming to us and FPL is a really big company. And I think a lot of folks don't realize that it's made up of a lot of different departments. So there may be an issue with a power plant, or there may be an issue with street lighting, or there may be an issue with billing. All of those are different teams. And so
Yeah.
I am your one stop shop for any FPL issue, essentially, for a lot of those really large stakeholders, business community, and local elected officials and government staff.
One thing, I don't know if I've ever asked you this in the times I've interviewed, but I thought about it as we were talking. You're FPL to so many people in Sarasota-Bradenton business community, Dev, you are FPL. But on the flip side, I bet you get a lot of negative, "Hey, how come this didn't work," or "This isn't working," or "My power's out," right? Everybody, I think I've texted you before, "Is my power coming back on?" So I'm just as guilty of it, or "When is my power coming back on?" How do you deal with that? You're such a positive person. How do you deal with the negativity that comes your way as a leader?
I appreciate the compliment. I try to be as positive as I possibly can be. I will say that I think what I've learned in this role more than anything is it's really angry when you get an email from FPL. It's really angry when you get a text from FPL about a power outage or a restoration needing to be done. And when you're speaking one on one with someone, it lowers the guard of so many people. And I think for someone to understand that there is a person on the other side of that that will do everything they can to fix the problem, I think it just lowers defenses. It lowers the temperature of the room. And so for me, a big part of it is just having people see me as FPL, as you stated, and know that I will do everything I can to get the problem solved. A lot of it, too, is misconception. A lot of people don't understand how power works. I'll be honest, I'm not an engineer. My life goal was not to work for a utility company, or, as our CEO likes to say, a technology company that happens to deliver energy. I this was not what I had intended for myself, and so much of it is just trying to understand how power works and making sure our customers understand how power works and how every process of it works. So no matter what the issue is, there's a resolve, but we need to truly get to the root of a problem to understand what the problem is, and then I can help solve it on the back end. So what I love about my job, and the reason that I get to be so positive, is because I'm the person that finds the solutions. So a lot of folks will call me or text me and they're upset about something or have questions about something that they don't understand. And the good part about my job is I get to be on the back end of that, of fixing the problem. So I'll turn that negative into a positive, and that's what I think I love most about my job.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, so I'm gonna take us further back, Dev. You grew up in this really tight-knit, close, and big family. Tell us about that and how that impacted sort of your leadership approach and style.
I appreciate the question because you know that I come from a very big family.
Yes.
So I am first generation born here. So my family came over from Cuba when they were young. My mom and dad came over when they were young, and as you can imagine, I'm one of three girls. I'm the youngest of three daughters, and I have a lot of cousins on both my mother and my father's side, and I am very close to all of them. Actually, the reason that I live on this coast now is a large part because of my family, because they all started moving to this area. We grew up in South Florida and like Miami, Broward. And so I would say it impacted much of who I am today as a person, but also as a leader. I think when you grow up in such a big family, you have to learn how to deal with multiple personalities. You have to learn how to communicate effectively. And it's interesting because the position that I find myself in professionally is the position I find myself in personally as well. In my family, I tend to be the mediator. So I tend to be the go between. I have a superpower of being able to understand someone's perspective and help them communicate it, because a lot of the time I'll have siblings or I'll have cousins that are frustrated or angry about something, and they don't know how to communicate it. And when they communicate it, it comes off a certain way, or they're insulting someone on the back end. And I come in and kind of soften the blow and help people understand. And the good thing is being part of such a big family too. There's no time for the silent treatment. There's like we don't go that like you're not allowed to go more than a certain amount of hours as a silent treatment. And I do really bad with awkward silences as well.
Right.
So, like, if anyone's
You're gonna
quiet,
have
I'm
it.
cutting through it as quickly as
Yeah.
possible because we have to get back together and we have to be a family. So, my family means the world to me, and they've shaped every bit of who I am today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really fascinating. You're doing the same things at work. You're, communicating and saying, "All right, how do we bring this a solution here?" So and so offended so and so. Every family's got it, right? Every
Mhm.
their own dynamics. So okay, moving on to leadership. I like that. Leadership characteristic. What is a leadership characteristic that you think every leader should have?
I think going along with kind of what we've been talking about, for me, I think the biggest characteristic is empathy, because I think in order to be able to lead a group of people, you have to understand their perspective. You have to understand where they're coming from to lead effectively. And so I don't find or feel that empathy is a weakness. I
Yeah,
find it as a strength. And I think it is also, as I stated, a superpower to be able to identify when someone's feeling a type of way or where they're coming from, and being able to kind of meet them in the middle and help them along and help them move forward. So I would say one of the biggest characteristics I look for and that I always show is empathy.
yeah. Tell us about some of your mentors, Dev. Who are they, and what have you learned from some other people that have influenced either your career at FPL or just in general?
So it's a really interesting question, because I would say I've had some really great mentors, and I'll talk about them in a second. But I will say that I think so much of our life is learning. It is taking negatives and looking at the positives. So
Yeah,
in my life, a lot of what's shaped the kind of leader I am is because I have had leaders in the past, um, that have fallen short or have not been as, impactful, I should say. And so I took notes of what they did that I did not like, and made sure that that was something that I didn't do in my profession or as I have grown as a leader. It's really taking lessons from the negative of others. But,
yeah,
I've also had the blessing of having really good mentors. I will say one of them was very early on in my career when I left the sports world and went into the corporate world. I had a mentor, I had a boss at the time. Her name was Danielle Puckerin. And it was a marketing agency in Georgia. And she she was so kind because she never saw youth as an impairment or
yeah,
something that needed to really be, she didn't micromanage. She empowered everyone that was on her team and gave them a sense of independence to make decisions that I think fueled everyone's growth so much faster,
yeah,
because we were able to, if we made mistakes, learn from those mistakes and move on, and didn't feel like it was going to cripple our career, cripple how we were viewed to leadership or anything like that. She allowed us the space to make mistakes and learn and grow. And I think I took a lot of that into who I am today. She was an incredible boss that I to this day still keep in touch with.
yeah. That's really cool. Talk about feedback as growing into your role. What's some feedback that you've heard, Dev, that maybe was hard to hear when you heard it, but you look back now as pretty valuable to sort of molding you into the leader you are today?
Stop talking. um,
Two
so coming
two
from
two
the
ears,
family that
one
I
mouth. Yeah,
yes, so coming from the family that I come from, a very big family, a very loud family. Sometimes if you wanted to be heard, you had to say it the quickest. You interrupted people, like, to get your point across, you kind of had to talk while other people were talking. And that was just something that I grew up it being normal of. And I'm very impulsive, and I'm an idea person. So someone might be speaking and it'll jog an idea or a memory of something that I think is impactful. And sometimes I'll interrupt, and just because I feel like I need to get it out of my chest, or I need to say it before I lose it. And it was it I had one hard lesson of it in college, and then I had one lesson of it while I was at FPL, and I think it is something that I'm still very actively leaning on and learning, but I have gotten a lot better, and I think what I have tended to do now is when I get the idea, I always have a notepad so that I can jog it down. Because the other part of it and what I had learned about it in college was really that like we were part of a group project that was being presented, and my colleague my other one of my other classmates was telling the professor what we were doing, and I felt like she was missing points, and I like interrupted to make sure she didn't forget one or two points, and I saw her face like deflate, and I being empathetic person I am, it immediately I felt so guilty that like I intruded on like her piece of the project, and I immediately felt like this sense of regret that I was like, I just because she was going to say those points. I just didn't let her get to them, you know? And so now I find myself, like I said, jotting it down because if it hasn't been said by the time there is the silence and I have the ability to say it, then I'll say it. But if not, it doesn't need, let other people take the room. So that's one of the biggest things. I am a talker, as you can see, as I keep
Yes.
talking. I
Well,
am a talker, so learning to stop is has been a big one.
makes for good podcast guests. So that's what we do on this podcast. We talk. All right. So this next question I have is not something designed for somebody who works in the industry you are, but it's going to sound like it is, but it's not. Um, how do you lead in uncertain times? People are looking to you. Again, I wasn't thinking that, again, we're coming up here in June and it's hurricane season, as I'm sure you know. Um, but do you lead in uncertain times when people are looking to you for ability, consistency, and not necessarily positive, but just looking to you for leadership? How do you do that in such a time where it's really unpredictable where storm is going to land or the impact it's gonna have? How do you do that?
Yeah, you know, one of one of the things that have shaped me really as a leader, and I think the reason that I've been able to grow as quickly as I have is because I pride myself on just being incredibly authentic. And what you see is kind of what you get. I'm not going to lie to someone. If I don't have an answer, if I am also uncertain, I'm honest about it. Uh, but what I assure my team or customers or our stakeholders and partners that we work with is for starters, if I don't have an answer, I'll tell you I don't have an answer, but I will find that answer and I will make sure that we get it solved. In the case of hurricanes, it's making sure it's giving others the ability to feel a little scared, right? It's giving them the space that they don't have to hold it all together. We are all figuring it out. At the end of the day, it's relating to people on just a human level. Storms can make or break a person. Sometimes I have worked with people on blue sky day to day operations that are the kindest souls and just have it together. And I have seen them during a storm situation. A switch gets flipped and they become a totally different person. And it's giving the grace and understanding that in times of stress, it can sometimes bring out the worst of us, and being the calm, steady person that I am, I think is what helps in those situations. It's that I'm consistent. I'm gonna stay who I am. If you have concerns, you can come to me. We will talk through them. And that's both internal and external because so much of my job is it's two-faced, right? It's I deal with a lot of the internal stuff as well as the external. I am confident in our company in FPL, and I know that we will get things done. So, from that perspective, there is so much certainty because we train for it every single year. We are the best in the business for it. Granted, we've had the most practice, which is why we've had to perfect it, but we are the best in business for a reason. So, I have no problem standing strong in that. But it's just from a personal level when people are worried about even employees of trying to get their homes ready, what are they going to do about their kids and things like that. It's helping them make those decisions in a calm manner and knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to be a really rough week or 2 weeks and then we get through it and we're going to do it together.
Yeah. What do you follow up on that? Because you have young children, you have, as
Mhm.
you mentioned, a big family, extended family, plus husband and your own little internal unit. How do you stay calm? Who do you rely on? Do you stay, by yourself in a closet for a few minutes, getting it out? Like, what do you do to get ready for this?
Um, the get ready part is never the problem. It's the
Yeah,
coming down.
coming
But the
down.
getting ready, so again, working for the company we do, we know that we have to respond
Yeah,
in any emergency, especially for storm, but in any emergency, we know we have to respond. And so we all internally have to put together a storm plan prior to any of these emergency. If a storm of category 1 to 3 hits, what's your plan? What are you doing with your animals? What are you doing with your kids? What are you doing with your house? There's a plan in place. And so for me, fortunately, because I have the family that I have and because I live close to them, I know that my kids are taken care of. So typically during storm, I send my kids away. And so I will send them either to my parents down south, depending. So like the storms last year, if they were, so I think it was Debbie and it was, or not last year, the year before, it was Debbie and Debbie and Helene. They were down south with my parents. For Milton, they went up to Georgia with my parents. And so it just saves me the stress of worrying about the kids. I know that they're taken care of. So from that perspective, I feel a lot better. My husband refuses to leave if I'm not leaving. So that he's a whole other issue. But
right. Husbands
I
usually are a whole other issue, but yes.
Yes. So he doesn't want me alone, even though I'm not home. That's the other thing is that when I'm writing out a storm, I'm writing out at a bunker. I'm writing out at the Manatee Emergency Operations Center or the Sarasota Emergency Operations Center. So I know I'm safe, but my husband will typically stay home. And we just stay in contact the entire time. So when we're going through the thick of it, I'm able to completely focus on nothing but storm restoration. What tends to happen though is when you start getting to day 6, day 7, day 8, just a crash naturally starts to happen. For some of these storms, you're getting I think it was Hurricane Ian. I got 4 hours of sleep in 72 hours. You're running on fumes because there's so much to do. And you have teams working off of Bravo shifts, and I oversee them, and I want both of them to have a piece of me. So I'll stay up longer than I maybe should. Um, but I stay very engaged. And so it's kind of after that, it's coming home. And yes, to your point, I will lock myself not in a closet, but I'll typically lock myself in like when I'm showering or something, and I'll just stay there for like an hour and just decompress, maybe cry just to get it all out and then get myself together and start again the next day.
Yeah, you gotta go back the next day. All right, Dev, again, not storm related, but as I mentioned earlier, we're, in the throes of summer here, about to be summer in Florida. What's next for you? What are you looking forward to for the rest of the year in terms of your position and FPL in general?
Yeah. So taking on this new position gives me more territory, but not that I'm directly overseeing. So I now, with this new role, will be focusing personally on Manatee, Sarasota. But because my previous role, I oversaw 5 counties directly. So Manatee, Sarasota, DeSoto, Highlands, and Hardy. In this new role, I'll be able to solely focus on Manatee, Sarasota, but I will be overseeing folks that oversee the other 9 counties. And so I'll be working a lot with them, trying to get a strategy plan together for just what the rest of the year looks like. We are going to be onboarding a new employee here that will have those counties kind of in the Heartland region. We're going to be onboarding that employee here shortly in like the middle of, they'll probably start first week of July, second week of July. So there'll be some onboarding for that. And then additionally, I have been given a really amazing opportunity that through FPL, I am part of a leadership cohort that is working on some things at headquarters. So I will be traveling back and forth a little bit between not just my region, but traveling over to our headquarters over on the East Coast to participate in that programming. And that programming goes from June 25th through November. So I'll be busy,
Wow.
all exciting things,
Yeah,
but I'll definitely be busy. And then, you throw in a random hurricane here or there, I will be knee deep in that as well.
I'm sure. Excellent. All right, Dev Iglesias, FPL, Florida Power and Light. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.